All right, I'm here with Steve Gera of Breakaway Data. Steve, thanks so much for taking the time out, your busy schedule to talk to us, XFL fans. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you, Mark. Really excited to kind of shed a little bit of light into what we've been doing with the league. It's a great league, and I mean the thing that we get so excited about is how excited the fans are, how excited the players are, how excited folks like yourself are. The whole deal is it's been a real pleasure to work in.
Great. So I guess first of all, I mean, and I've shown your videos on our podcast before, the XFL Breakaway. So why don't you give fans like what is Breakaway Data and how are you bringing that technology to the XFL?
Yeah, so Breakaway Data is we're an athlete data company. We were built by athletes and by coaches to create and then to create data that really tells a story about the way athletes actually play the game, and that they can use to develop themselves, but then also that coaches and scouts can use to select players and to figure out how to bring the best out of them, right? And then our data can also be used in return to play and in injury prevention. So our core products are we have Field Labs, which is a 8 camera markerless motion biomechanics capture platform that we go out onto the field. And what we do is we put these 8 cameras onto like a corner of the field, and we have athletes come out and run routes, throw, a 3-step in rhythm, 15-yard out, a 5-step, with a hitch, 35-yard skinny post. We have defensive ends, run the hoop drill where they actually have to simulate trying to come off the edge and then basically scoop down and grab a towel, which basically simulates that Von Miller lean that we've all seen on Sundays. And what we do is our cameras capture how fast players move. It captures the force that they put into the ground, the force that they put into bags. And what that does is it allows us to basically show you how players actually play the game. So it's a lot different than a 40-yard. A 40-yard dash tells you how fast a player is at the 40-yard dash. What our data tells you is how does a player actually play the game of football. And that's one of the main things we've been doing with the XFLs. We've been out at every single showcase, running all the players through. We've had 1,300 athletes go through our system during the showcases. Over the course of the 5 showcases that we were at, and we're just real blessed to be then now giving that data to the XFL so that they can evaluate this talent and really find some of those undervalued diamonds in the rough who maybe they don't have the best 40 time, maybe they don't have the best 3-cone drill, maybe they don't have the biggest hands in the world, right? But they're fast and they can actually play the game of football. And what we can do is we can find those players with that data. And then we also give that data and that video back to players through our Breakaway app. So our Breakaway app is a direct to athlete app. And so what it does is if you're a high school athlete, if you're a college athlete, if you're a pro athlete, you get on our platform, you go ask your team for your data. They give it to you. They put it into the app. You can look at it on a daily basis. And then you can use that for your own development. So we've given video and we've given metrics out to all the players who've gone to the showcases, and we've got guys who have opened and looked at their video 300 plus times and are now actually working on how do they get off the line faster, right? Because we can actually tell you exactly where the deficiencies in being in the 95th, being one of the top 5 guys versus being one of the top 15. We got players who are now using that data to try and prepare themselves to try and get drafted by the XFL.
So how would if the player saw that data, what happens in the like does there a training program associated with that or is it like you just said
Yeah.
hey you're in the low percentile, how do you would improve your
How would they
stance or something
improve?
like
Yeah.
yeah.
So we're not giving it. We're to so far we have not actually given like direct. This is what you should do, right? The XFL is going to start doing that with some of the players in the fall. They're going to have training protocols and some other things that we're going to deliver through the app. Right now, what's happening is most of the players, if they have very specific questions about the way that they move, the way the data is actually presented to them and the way that the video works is that they can actually go to their coaches. So if they have an S&C, if they have a speed guy that they work with, they can go back to them and be like, hey, now let's talk about this. And like, what should I do in order to, you know, I'm good across the board. My get off the line is good. My speed into my break is good. It's my speed coming out of the break. So why is that happening, right? And then I've seen a couple wide receiver coaches who have been working with guys who are like, well, you're when you get into the top of your route, you're not pumping your arms as much, right? And so, and they can see it in the video and they can see that in the data, right?
Mm.
And so, right now we're just giving it to the athletes. They're kind of making some of the training protocols and different some of the training calls themselves alongside their staff. But in the future, we're going to have some recommendations and some different coaching points kind of going forward.
And so because I've gotten messages from players. So basically all the players have access to this data now. They didn't have to, was it a couple days and then they get access to it? Like, how was that process? In case I get that question, I haven't seen my
Yeah.
data
So you
yet.
get that question. So they can always like contact me at steve@breakawaydata.com. And we've had a bunch of guys kind of reach out to us who want
Okay.
to ask us, and if they want to ask us questions about, hey, you know, what's your opinion on some of the things that I can do? We have an entire sports science team and we're happy to, and coaching team. And I coached in the NFL for 10 years. So we're always happy to give any sort of advice that we can to players. The thing I'll tell you is that, like all those players who've been contacting us and kind of working with us, you know, I think have gotten some pretty good value from it. But yeah, so what ends up happening is, you know, the athletes all have it. And it takes about like 3 to 4 days. We literally have to use a supercomputer
Mm-hmm.
to actually derive the metrics from it. So we have to bring the video back to our head shed basically, and then process that. And it takes about a couple days, and then we give it out to everyone.
Gotcha.
But you're an athlete listening to this, and you haven't gotten you haven't gotten it. Just reach out to me direct at steve@breakawaydata.com, because we have had a few folks like fall through the crack because email addresses were wrong and a few other things as well.
Gotcha. And then, so how did you get involved with the XFL? Like, how did that all come about? You were not part of the XFL 2.0 era. This is
Well, I was,
you
yeah. We
were
were
okay.
the 2.0 area, and we did this in XFL 2.0 era, and we did it without using the markerless motion capture cameras. We actually used different sensors for it.
Okay.
And so what we were able to do was to really kind of focus on the building blocks for this. And so we worked with the last iteration, and we worked with this iteration. But my background is, so I coached in the NFL for just under a decade with the Chargers, Browns, Colts, and a bunch of other teams. And then I also coached for a number of other organizations over the course of the last couple of years. Then my business partner Dave, who's the CEO of Breakaway, he played in the NFL for 7 seasons with the Houston Texans, Seattle Seahawks, Washington football team, Denver Broncos. So we always we've consulted for the XFL, and having coached at the combine and scouted off of combine data, and then Dave having gone to the combine's really used. The NFL combine and combine events are really useful for looking at historical information, but there's still some gaps in that it doesn't tell you exactly how a guy plays football. Right. And so we always wanted to create something that could be used in like 3 main use cases in the game of football, which is scouting, coaching, and then return to play once a player has an injury. And that's why we developed field labs. And that's frankly why we developed Breakaway Data, was so that information could be used to really scout, coach, develop players.
Gotcha. And then, are you involved with any other sports leagues like the CFL, USFL, any of those conversations happening too? Are you involved with the NFL or?
Yeah, so I think like the best thing I can say is that we are involved with other leagues. There's some things that are kind of like that I can't necessarily reveal right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there are some things that we're doing with the Shield and with some teams in the NFL, and then also some discussions we've been having with both individual players and then with the league. But we work across sport as well. So we work with
That
the
was my
Los
next
Angeles
question.
Dodgers. We work with Chelsea Football Club. We work with FC Barcelona. We work with, I mean, I personally have worked in cycling, cricket. I mean, we work across the whole gamut of sports, rugby, you name it. We've worked inside of it. And so, yeah, so we part of what we've done here with the XFL, we've taken some of the things that we've learned from like FC Barcelona, and we've cross-connected it into American football, and have kind of brought some of that knowledge and innovation to the game that I love the most.
Gotcha. And then how did Breakaway Data kind of come about? What's its kind of origin story, and how did you get involved?
Yeah, I have worked, yeah, I personally have worked in innovation, technology, and data for professional sports teams and athletes for the last decade and a half. Previously, I coached in the NFL. I was on North Turner's staff at the San Diego Chargers, and I was on Rob Jasinski's staff for basically a cup of coffee with the Cleveland Browns, and he was there for just under a year. And then I worked for the Colts. I worked with the Colts as a consultant. I worked with a couple of other NFL teams as a consultant. And then I went off and started to build out basically a consulting practice around helping teams understand how to use data and technology, specifically in a lot of ways around athletes. And so Breakaway Data was started 2 years ago. Myself and Dave founded the company. We took investment from the owners from the Los Angeles Dodgers, Los Angeles Lakers, Philadelphia 76ers. We've got some athletes like Chris Paul from the Phoenix Suns has invested in our company. We got a bunch of other athletes who have backed us as well and are using our products. And our core mission is basically to take applied athlete data and give it directly to athletes. And so really at Breakaway Data, we're on a mission to democratize analytics and data and put it into hands of every single team sport athlete on the planet.
Oh, it's definitely needed. I mean, I'm a technological person myself, software engineer by day,
Yeah.
XFL News Hub guy at night. So that's very cool. Now, I guess my final question is, so what did you think of the players at the showcase? I mean, you've seen tons of players. You said over 1,300 players. Tell us about maybe some of the locations and, what your impressions were of the type of athlete that you saw trying out for the XFL.
Yeah. So the first thing I'll say is I know a lot of people. There's always a lot of discussion about spring league and whether or not there's enough players to have a couple of spring league teams.
Yeah.
The thing I'll say is that based upon the talent that I saw, and then also based upon the desire I saw from the players and the motivated, there's more than enough room for spring league football. And then when you look at the USFL's numbers, I think from this past year, and also the numbers that the XFL had for viewership in the first couple of in the last go around, I think it supports it, right? But from a talent-based standpoint, the talent was really high, and so I think what we were able to see was places like Arizona had great, just top to bottom, really solid players. The quarterbacks at IMG Academy were excellent. We had some really great quarterbacks at IMG Academy. We had good players across the board, and it was interesting because in some of the different locations, some of the different positions kind of stood out a little bit more. Maryland had some really great edge players, wide receivers, DBs and whatnot. So it's going to be really interesting at the end of the day to see how they all rack and stack based upon not only our data, but then also the standard combine data. And then, at the end of the day, what our information and what combine information is meant to do is help filter and help, discover players that you might want to take a second look at. Because it all comes back down to tape too. We got to go back and watch a lot of the different tape, and the scouts of the XFL have to go back and watch that college tape, that USFL tape, that fan controlled tape, whatever else it is. But I would say that the player quality was really high, and we were excited to see it.
So, are you going to be at the kicking and special teams as well?
So I think the plan right now is because that's here in Southern California, and Nick Novak, the guy who one of the guys who's going to run it. I actually was on the Chargers coaching staff when he was putting balls through the uprights. Way back when. So yeah, our plan, we're going to go down there. We do have it built out for our lab is actually field labs is built out for specialists as well. So we're going to go down there. We're going to get some film on some of those players as well. We're going to take a lot of different coaching points from guys like Nick. on some of the metrics that they want to see. We're excited about that. Sounds like I think we're also going to be doing some stuff with some quarterbacks here pretty soon. We got a lot on the horizon, right? And then we're going to be back with the XFL in January. We're going to put a system in down in Dallas, and so this is going to become a common thing for players to see. And I think in the future, what we're open is that more colleges, more high schools. We're even thinking about hosting our own event out here at the end of either August or sometime in September. We already have players who are asking us, "Hey, if I fly to LA or if I drive to LA, will you guys retest me?" And then when we sit down and talk to coaches, if we get enough guys who want, if we get like 50 to 100 guys who want to come out here and actually run the drills again, we'll create an event for that. I'll create that, and I'll actually pay for that myself. If enough players want to come out here and do that. All you got to do is contact me at steve@breakawaydata.com, and we'll set that up.
All right. Well, great, Steve. Well, there you go, players who have contacted me. You've got it. You heard it from the man himself. If you want to get retested, you can do that. Just go out to Los Angeles. This is great, Steve, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. Thanks for being on the show.
You bet, you bet. And I hope your listeners, since my daughter's here, I hope your listeners got some of the fancy Nancy stuff in the background. If they did, my daughter just tested positive for COVID. That's why you heard it. But everyone out there probably understands that.
Oh yeah, totally do.
So I appreciate you, Mark. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.
You too. Thanks.
All right.